Let's talk about it. You've heard it. You may believe it. I'm not going to waste any time, guys. You see the title of the video. Many of my videos are about helping people, and I feel I must do that by talking about this topic. Though it may be sensitive for some of you, and I understand that. Let's get down to some fundamental things to comprehend what is being said in this video. If you're watching this video and you have the perspective that there's this racist system out there that is oppressing you, try your best to put your emotion aside. If you feel yourself getting angry, then you're only listening with your emotion, not with logic. You're a slave to your emotions and can easily be manipulated not only by your emotions, but by people that know that you can be manipulated through your emotions. If you feel that, pause the video, take a deep breath, come back, and listen with an open mind. I always hear systemic racism is a huge issue in America. But what is it really? I have questions. I believed it. I talked about it as a huge problem in minority communities. But what's the actual problem? How do I articulate it? I have to be able to articulate it in order for it to be solved. I have to be able to articulate it to someone who doesn't know what it is. Can it be solved? Would the cure be worse than the problem? Talking to people who have explained this and looking up definitions online, systemic racism is a belief that there is a system that oppresses minorities for racial purposes. This could be not hiring someone because they're black and brown, ensuring there's wealth gaps between races, particularly whites and minorities, and summing up the general issues surrounding the minority community and amounting it all to one word: racism. But racism is a mindset, right? A belief. So how exactly would we know when someone is being racist? Well, we'd have to look at their actions, because I and you, we're probably not psychic. I mean, if I was, I wouldn't be doing these YouTube videos. The proof I see online are studies of gap differences or disparities between minorities and other races. Black workers have historically earned less than white workers. College attainment is higher for whites than blacks. Home ownership is the lowest for blacks. And black prisoners being overrepresented in the US prison populace compared to other races. Systemic racism again, right? The truth is, there will always be a disparity between races if there is freedom for actions to occur and someone is enforcing some sort of quota on people. It's the same as it is for different sexes. For example, you probably know that there are more female nurses than male nurses. Men are overrepresented in prison than women. There are more women drivers than there are men drivers. In none of these examples do you ever hear, well, the explanation is because women are sexist. Women hire more female nurses than men. Or maybe they're arresting more men than women. I mean, think about why there's that disparity in just those examples. It doesn't seem controversial to say maybe men are more inclined to not follow rules than women. They're less agreeable, more dominant and stubborn by nature, potentially. Or maybe women just happen to like nursing more. You probably thought of other factors besides women being sexist to explain that. It's not much different when we're talking about systemic racism. There are multiple factors involved besides racism that are reasons for disparities, and we all collectively do a disservice by not looking at other reasons that are directly within our control. Let's look at some statistics again. If we added other factors, like that minority may have had lower credit, and that's why he or she didn't get the house. That minority dropped out of school and wanted to go to trade school instead, be a plumber, a mechanic, a carpenter. That minority didn't have a father in the home, and unfortunately that led him to look into men in the street life as role models as a child, and now he or she is in prison. In none of those examples that I gave you, race is a factor holding a minority back. A minority just happens to be black or brown. But his or her choice is reflected in the systemic racism statistics to make it appear as if systemic racism is the ultimate cause for any and all disparities. And that just isn't true. If we added other factors besides racism as a causative factor to show disparities, we may see that actual incidences of legitimate racism is lower than we thought. Not to mention, Asians are outpacing whites and blacks in nearly every aspect. No one talks about Asian privilege, though. I mean, if anyone was behind systemic racism, But it's because the mainstream media doesn't care about minorities. On the contrary, really. Because what I'm telling minorities and white liberals alike is stop yelling systemic racism and talking about a problem that really can't be solved, because you don't know what's on a person's mind. You don't know if there's another factor besides racism that creates disparity. Stop calling everything racist, because it really doesn't propel minorities anywhere except making them feel so oppressed that they can never change their destiny because it's already been decided for them. If you want to close the gap between disparities, stop looking outside of yourself and look within yourself. How are you ever supposed to overcome anything if you already think you are in a losing battle? Have you ever succeeded at anything with a loser's mentality? What mentality is more oppressing than thinking, I'm already at the bottom of the totem pole. I'm black or brown and I won't be able to make it in the world like white folk. I didn't even know I was black when I was a kid until adults and teachers kept telling me I was a victim because of historical oppressions on people that looked like me. I just thought I was like everybody else before that. It was never white people telling me either. It was black people. What is stronger than any oppressive narrative does not have to be racism. Is being relentless and not letting anything decide your fate. Racism is an obstacle that can be overcome like anything else. You may experience it in your life, you may not, but chances are you'll have a different obstacle in your life. Drop the victim narrative, pick up the victor narrative, and if you meet an obstacle, overcome it and look back at it when you get to your goal. Like, I did that. I overcame. I persevered. But don't use obstacles as crutches. Be fortunate for your troubles. It will make you a better person. Racism is not systemic. There are individuals who are going to be racist. But you can't change them. But you can change you. Thanks for watching this episode of Gather Round. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe before you leave. Hit that like button, that notification bell, and share with your friends a different perspective. Peace and love to you all.